Every time you pull into a gas station, something quietly strange is happening right in front of you. The price on the sign isn't a round number. It's never $3.50 or $4. It's $3.49 or $4.19. That tiny fraction, 9/10 of a cent, sits at the end of every price at nearly every gas station across the country. It's so familiar that most people stopped seeing it long ago. But if you slow down for just a moment and actually think about it, the questions start piling up. Why a fraction of a cent? Who decided that? And does it actually mean anything? Or is it just a trick that's been running for almost 100 years without anyone questioning it? To understand where the point 9 comes from, you have to go back to the 1930s. The United States was deep in the Great Depression, and the federal government was looking for new ways to raise money without directly taxing citizens in obvious ways. The solution was a tax on gasoline. Originally, just 1 cent per gallon, it was a small number, but it added up fast given how much fuel the country was already consuming. States quickly followed with their own gas taxes layered on top of the federal one. Suddenly, the total tax on a gallon of fuel wasn't a clean number anymore. It was something like 1.5 or 2.3 cents per gallon. Gas stations, trying to pass that exact cost to the consumer without absorbing it themselves, began pricing their fuel to the 10th of a cent to reflect the true per-gallon cost as precisely as possible. The fraction wasn't a gimmick at first, it was an accounting decision. But something unexpected happened. Stations that priced their gas at, say, 10.9 cents per gallon noticed that drivers perceived the price as closer to 10 cents than 11. Not because the customers were doing the math wrong, but because the human brain doesn't naturally process fractions in the same way it processes whole numbers. The eye lands on the 10, the mind registers 10, and the point 9 at the end gets filed away as a kind of rounding noise. Competitors noticed that stations using fractional pricing were attracting more customers, even when the actual difference in cost was less than a penny. And so an industry-wide habit was born, not through any central agreement or conspiracy, but through simple competitive imitation. Everyone did it because everyone else was doing it, and because it worked. This psychological of $3.99 doesn't feel like it's almost $3.99 of $3.99 doesn't feel like it's almost $4. It feels like it belongs to the $3 range. The brain anchors itself to that first number and treats everything after it as secondary detail. Gas stations figured this out empirically long before behavioral economists had the language to describe it. They didn't need a study. They needed customers, and the fractional pricing delivered them. What makes the gas industry unique is that this effect is amplified by volume. When you buy a shirt for $29.99 instead of $30, the difference is 1 cent. When you fill a 15-gallon tank and the price is $3.499 instead of $3.50, the difference is also just a fraction of a cent per gallon, but the psychological impact of seeing 3.4 on the sign rather than 3.5 is enormous. Drivers will pass one station to reach another across the street if the sign shows even a fraction less per gallon. The point 9 isn't just a leftover from old tax calculations anymore. It has become a precision instrument for influencing behavior at scale. There's also a competitive pressure dimension that keeps the practice locked in place. If every gas station in a region prices fuel at $3.49 and one of them switches to a clean $3.50, they haven't raised the price by much. But psychologically, they've separated themselves from the competition. In an industry where margins are thin and customers make quick decisions at highway speeds while reading a sign from 100 feet away, that perception gap matters enormously. No single station wants to be the one that looks more expensive, even by a number that barely exists. So the point 9 stays. It stays because removing it feels like a risk no one wants to take first. It's worth noting that you almost never actually pay that 0.9 of a cent. Pumps calculate to the nearest full cent. If you pump exactly 1 gallon at $3.49, you're charged $3.50. If you pump 10 gallons, you pay $34.99. The fraction resolves itself through rounding, but only after it's already done its psychological work on you at the sign. By the time you're at the pump, the decision is made. You chose this station partly because of a number that never truly existed in your transaction. The 9-cent pricing has outlasted the tax conditions that created it, survived the shift from analog signs to digital displays, and remained untouched through decades of economic upheaval, oil crises, and price swings that have taken gas from under $1 to over $5 per gallon. It is one of the most durable pricing conventions in American commercial history, not because it was mandated, not because it was ever formally agreed upon, but because it worked. It tapped into something fundamental about how people see numbers, and that's a force that doesn't expire. So the next time you're pulling into a gas station and your eyes scan the sign for the best deal, remember what you're really looking at. A number designed not just to inform you, but to shape how you feel before you ever pull up to the pump. The 9-cent is less than a penny. But as a piece of applied psychology, it has been worth far more than that for nearly a century. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution.